Hey there, how there, ho there, Chef Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to a brand new season of Stone Cold Hockey. That's right, we have done plenty of seasons in the Stone Cold Hockey franchise. We've done 1965 with the Montreal Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup. 1968, the New York Rangers somehow won the Stanley Cup over the Minnesota North Stars. 1970-71, we saw the Rangers win the Stanley Cup over the Boston Bruins, which is weird because it was the 70-71 Bruins trying to get the redemption song. So the Canadiens would catch right. Sorry, 74-75, where the Flyers winning the Stanley Cup over the Canadiens at 5. 78-79 with the Habitants winning the Stanley Cup over the Islanders. I forget what team was that. Oh, it was Boston, but Montreal won the Stanley Cup as per usual. 81-82, seeing Edmonton ruin us. We were up 3-2 on the Oilers, but we couldn't win a game to save our lives. And then, ironically, 83-84, the Oilers beat Edmonton when I was the Oilers. So you just can't win. So the 65 Leafs, the 68 Blues, the 71 Habitants, the 75 Flyers, the 79 Bruins, the 82 Islanders, and the 84 Oilers. I only have gotten one title with a team. Weird. So, guess what? We're in a new season. It's 1990-91. This is the season in real life that saw Mario Lemieux and the Pittsburgh Penguins finally lift the Stanley Cup. 7 years after Lemieux was the number one overall pick by the Penguins, he let them in, and there was this massive trade March of 1991, which we'll get into. And yes, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be the focal point for the SCH thing as I am doing the Penguins, trying to see if I can get Mario and his team the Stanley Cup. As you see, the Norris, Smythe, Adams, and Patrick, not really any changes since 1984, the last time we left you. Everything is hunky dory and all that. Teams have changed. The Red Wings are entering a period of playoff appearances that would rival everyone else. 2 straight decades of making the playoffs for the Red Wings. They were not the dead things anymore compared to 84. The Blackhawks were much better in 91 in real life. They hosted the All-Star game, tops in the North, but they couldn't win against the freaking Minnesota North Stars. Toronto Maple Leafs were disastrous. They were the second worst team in the NHL and would have had the third pick. Well, San Jose got the second pick, but they would have had the number 3 pick. But they traded away that first round pick to New Jersey in 1989 for the one of one Tom Curvers as a power play quarterback, and it bit them in the butt. The Minnesota North Stars, who came out of freaking nowhere, the worst team by points of the 16 playoff teams in real life, they somehow, some way, beat Chicago and St. Louis to win the North Division crown, and then beat Edmonton to get to the Stanley Cup Finals against Pittsburgh. And they were up. And they were up 2-1. They were up 2-1. The St. Louis Blues, with the whole North Division and all that. St. Louis Blues, they were the second best team in the NHL, only went back to Chicago. In the Smythe Division, Winnipeg, they actually lost to Vancouver on the final day of the 91 season to make the playoffs. LA made the playoffs, when Gretzky was still there. Calgary was there. They played Edmonton in the famous Smythe Division semifinal, which saw Game 7, Nesatikin and the Hero. The Oilers, this was when the dynasty basically dropped off, 1991. The Adams Division, Boston was a bit better. Montreal was okay, but not great. Hartford started to pick up a little bit. Buffalo was okay. Quebec were terrible. They ended up having the number 1 pick in 91, Eric Lindros, but he refused to play for a floundering franchise. And it hurt matters that it was Quebec and, the Francophone culture. And also, it also bit that, he had the ultimate hockey helicopter parents in Bonnie and Carl Lindros. The Patriot Division, the Flyers were not there. Ron Hextall was injured too much. Washington was getting a little better. Pittsburgh, was getting better. New Jersey was starkly okay. The Islanders were floundering, and the Rangers were okay. So let's go to the schedule. The first day of the season is October the 4th. There are 9 games, and lo and behold, my Pittsburgh Penguins are not one of the 18 teams that are playing today. One of the 3 teams that aren't playing. Philly and Boston tied. Montreal beat Buffalo. Calgary beat Vancouver. Chicago overtime with the Rangers. Devils beat Detroit. Minnesota beat St. Louis in overtime. LA, Quebec, Hartford tied at 2. And Toronto went to Winnipeg and won 5-2. Our first game is against Washington, who also didn't play on opening day. We have 3 goalies. We have, well, Frank Pietrangelo starts this game in Washington against Don Beaupre, the pride of Waterloo. Not Kitchener, Waterloo. Washington, their backup goalie is Mike Liut, who was our opponent in '84 in the conference finals with Edmonton against St. Louis. And, Liut went from St. Louis to Hartford. Now he's in Washington in the twilight of his career. Jim Harnethek is the third string goalie. Our main goalie is Tom Barrasso, who we picked up from Buffalo in a big trade for Darren Shannon, which ruined Buffalo out. Frank Pietrangelo, the backup, he was the guy who actually had to come in the playoffs for an injured Barrasso in Game 6 and 7 against the Devils and start off elimination. And we have Wendell Young. Kitchener! That's right. Wendell Young is a former Kitchener Ranger. So here's the lineup. A lot of the people you see with slashes are players we don't have. So yeah, you have 4 key names that we don't have because this is true to form. The Capitals have a couple of players today. Don't really have. So for us, we have Mark Recchi. Yeah, he was a Pittsburgh Penguin before a Flyer or a Habitant. We have Kevin Stevens, great player but bad drug habits. John Colin, who was this great guy before being traded to Hartford, and then of course, he ended up getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Jaromir Jagr, rookie Jaromir Jagr. Pittsburgh drafted him 5th in the 1990 draft. It was like huge. Paul Coffey, Kitchener. So Paul Coffey has joined me. Yeah, it's been a 7-year gap. So yeah, Paul Coffey was a Pittsburgh Penguin, won a Stanley Cup, and is a Kitchener Ranger icon. Bob Erie, Phil Bourque, Mario, but injuries would hurt him throughout the season. Joey Mullen, who went over from St. Louis to Calgary to Pittsburgh. Brady Gilhan from West Germany. Sarli Solapsky, said. That's also a player that will go to Hartford later on. Brian Trottier. I can't believe Trotz would come back to play hockey. Not with the others, but the Pittsburgh Penguins. Troy Loney the Looney. Yuri Herdina, who I think, was he traded or do we had him? I can't remember. Anyway, Tony Tanti with the Penguins. I think we traded him. Yeah, but Tony Tanti is like, we had him on this team. Rob Brown, who was okay, but I think we traded him Hartford. Barry Pedersen, I know we traded him to Hartford because I got his hockey card as a Whaler. Paul Stanton, Gordy Roberts. I think he went to Minnesota. I think Minnesota made some trades with us. And then Peter Tangolandi. I know that. Yeah, Gordy Roberts was a North Star, I think, at the end of it. The Capitals, Kevin Hatcher, decent defenseman. Kelly Miller, Mike riddle me this. John Druce, who in the previous year in 1990 was a playoff icon because of Dino Cicerelli's injured, and Dino the Dinosaur is on the Capitals. Rico Bufonco, Dale Hunter. I spit because of obvious reasons, because, I'm a Kitchener guy and he's London. Dmitry Khrushchev's coming over from the Soviet Union. Peter Bondra coming in from the Soviet Union. Well, sorry, not from Soviet. He's from Slovakia. He's from the Czech Republic before it dissolved into Slovakia. Kelly Johansson, good defenseman. Stephen Leach. Nick Kiprios, and of course, Mikhail Tartinov from the Soviet Union. Peter Sezel before he went to the Leafs. Dave Tippett, future head coach. Bob Rouse, before headed to Toronto. Tim Berkland, Alan May, a massive influencer. Bob Joyce, Rod Langway, the pride of Taiwan. Well, he was American, and he won 2 Norris trophies. Mike Lamore and Chris Felix and Rob Murray. Here we go. 5 minutes into the period. Can we take advantage? We do. We score. Yuri Hardina Knox. Hard knocks Hardina with the goal. Pedersen and Yager with the assist. Yager his first point in the NHL. 5 minutes later. We got no chance, but we can't score. 4 minutes later. Russian. 5-minute major. Brad Allen May gets the penalty. So with a 5-minute major, we can score as many times as we want. First chance scores. Lake Erie with the goal from Stevens and Coffey, 2-0. Emerson scores. Welcome to the NHL. Yugger. Can't believe it. We're talking about 1990 when he came into the NHL, and 35 years later, he's still in the Czech League at 53 years old playing professional hockey. Yammer Yager. He scores from Lemieux and Canty, makes it 3-0. They killed the penalty, but yeah, we scored twice on that penalty, 3-0. We're looking good. But they have a chance? No. Very much later. A fight between Kevin Stevens and Dale Hunter. Hunter trying to rile up Washington. But it doesn't work. We score! John Cullen. He scores John Edward Cullen. More like Edward Cullen. He scores from Recchi and Herdina. 4-0. Forster. We get a hit. Injury. But thankfully for Washington, no penalty. 5 minutes later. Pressure. Injury on Washington. Leach. And we're losing defense like flies. But we score! Pop power play goal. Erie, Pennsylvania. His second of the night from Yager. And that is it for the old prey. Harnefex is coming into the game. And John Hughes scores from Ridley to Boston, makes it 5-1. That's all right. It's 5-1. Rouge should be okay. 6 minutes later, Ridley scores. It'll be this from Miller and Hatcher outside the booth. I realize we won 41 games. Washington only was one game above 500. 2 minutes later, Hatcher. Can we score? Cullen can't and Patterson can't. 5 minutes later. There we go. Joe Mullen. Mullen the bullet. He scores from Recchi and Lemieux. I know he didn't have a bullet, but whatever. 6-2. Let's stop the game. Bobby delivers a hit. Watson scores. Tabanka makes it 6-3. Well, that's all right. 6-3. That's a good first day's work for us. Bobby scoring twice. That's okay. Saturday. We are. How many teams? Only one team. Edmonton did not play the first 2 days. And we are not playing on Saturday night. Toronto, Calgary on Hockey Night in Canada. Calgary wins 3-2. Edmonton wins on Hockey Night in Canada against Winnipeg 7-1. Vancouver loses in overtime to LA. Quebec beats Boston. Well, nice job. Montreal and Buffalo tie at 2. We play Sunday night hockey. Yes, we will. We'll play the 2-0 New Jersey Devils. Yeah, it's weird that Toronto's on a Western road trip to start the 1991 season. But anyway, Toronto aside, we are playing the New Jersey Devils as Tom Barrasso gets to start the home winner against Sean Burke, the 6'4" giraffe, who actually in '92 actually left the Devils after contract negotiation problems and played for Canada at the Olympics. Because he was not tied down to the NHL team, he could play in the Olympics. Things were different. And of course, that meant a lot of things. But yeah. Pittsburgh doing their job and all that. Sean Burke, Chris Terreri, the main goalie for the Devils, Rolly Melanson, who, as the others, retangled with him in the Islanders 7 years prior. He's now a Devils goalie, soon to be a half goalie. Well, anyway, the Devils, well, this is regular season. We played 3 games. John McLean, who was a hero in New Jersey for 3 years prior, scoring an overtime goal against Chicago, which actually propelled the Devils to the playoffs on the final day of that season, and subsequent rally to the conference finals. Claude Lemieux, the agitator, who left Montreal because Montreal was tired of his antics and not scoring the regular season, so they traded him to the Devil Dogs for Kirk Muller. Oh no, sorry, Kirk Muller was on that team. Who did the Devils trade in Montreal? It wasn't Stefan Richer. Was it? Oh, he was a Devil. Huh. Well, anyway, Brandon Shanahan, the guy who was with the Devils for like 1 season before traded to St. Louis because of no, he played a few years with the Devils. He went to St. Louis as a free agent, and that's when the Devils got Scott Stevens as compensation. Kirk Muller playing for the Devils, yeah, he was traded before the '92 season to the Habs. Peter Stastny, the legendary Quebec Nordique in Newtown, New Jersey. Patrick Sundstrom, Dougie Brown, Laurie Boschman, the Born Again Christian, I guess. Alex Casatena from the Soviet Union. Bruce Driver. Ranger fans hate the guy's name. John Morris. He does share the name with a massive curler in Canada, but he's not the curler. He's the hockey player. So Daniel Seeger from the Czech Republic. David Malley. Troy Crowder. Pat Conacher. We had him with the Oilers. Alan Stewart. Eric Weinrich. Ken Danico, number 3 in your programs. Walt Pundaby. Paul Yeisbert. Jeff Medill. Slava Fetisov on that team. Remember him? Miles O'Connor and Tommy Adbeline. 5 minutes into the game, no chance. We had a chance. 2 minutes later, aggression. That will take a penalty. It's going to be on Troy Crowder. Can we take a minute? We sure can. Edward Poland, the second from Coffee. Hope he's not in the twilight of his career. 3 minutes later. Nope. Another 5. No. Unfortunately, deliver hit by no penalty. 1-0 after 20 minutes. The Devils won their first 2 games. We're going to try to ruin their win streak. Devils have a chance, but no. Aggression. Devils got the penalty. It's Shanahan. And we score! There's Mario. One minute later, fight between Crowder and Rob Brown trying to work up the crowd. And nothing. No fight, eh? Well, we're up 2-0. Maybe the Devils have no fight. I came in like a wrecking ball. All I know is we scored the goal. His first from Trotz. Ryan Trotz back in the next. A chance for Brendan Shannon. Fuck. 3 minutes later. They score. Claude Lemieux. First goal of the season from McLean. Really no shutout. Kevin Stevens. Actually makes it 4-1. You knew I was going to make that mistake. With 10 o'clock. Devils have a chance. McLean, no. Great job by Brass. Great goaltending. 4-1. We win. Yes, Claude Lemieux scored. No relation to Mario Lemieux. Should be, but no. We win 4-1. Beautiful. We're 2-0. Minnesota is not going to be 3-0. Calgary is. They're trying to be 3-0. Well, we're trying to be 3-0. We go to St. Louis. I think we go on a Western road trip. We're in St. Louis, and we have Brasso of the night against Vincent Riando, who actually became the first NHL goalie, North American-born goalie in the Russian Super League in 2000 before they became the KHL. Riando's backups are Cujo, a young Cujo, and Pat Jablonski, who would actually be Patrick Roy's backup in Montreal. The Golden Brett Hall, this was the season in which he put 86 past opposing netminders Jeff Courtnall before he went to the Canucks in a massive March trade deadline deal. Adam Oates, Old Speed Speeds, and Marley Grow, great offensive player. Dave Lowry, Rod Brindamore, Rod the Bod on that team. Bob Basson, Rich Sutter, always with the Sutter brothers. Cliff Ronning before he went to the Canucks. Jeff Brown, a great defenseman. Ron Wilson, I don't think it's the same Ron Wilson who's coach. Paul Cavallini, who once scored a big goal for St. Louis, for Bowling Green, winning them the NCAA championship. Sergio Molesso, who would also go to Vancouver in that big deal. Gino Cavallini, Paul's brother, Paul McLean, the Walrus. Scott Stevens, Kitchener. That's right. His one and only season in Kitchener. In St. Louis, after going from Washington to St. Louis, and then the Devils got him in compensation. Glenn Featherstone, Steve Tuttle, Herb Ragland, Rick Mahar, got a car called Rick Mahar, Mario Marawa, Tom Tilley, Harold Snaps from Canuck, and Robert Dirk. I think also went to Vancouver. 2 minutes later. Deliver hit. 5 minutes. We score! Phil, not Ray Bork. He scores from Phil the Frill from Hardina. Phil the Frill. 2 minutes later. Basson. And we get the someone killed on us. Nice try, Stanton. 3 minutes later. Let's go! Up, four goals and 2 games for Brett Hall for Brown and Grindelwald. Poop the bear. And we go! 24 seconds left. John Colin, not in the twilight of his career. His third from Coffee makes it 2-1. 2 minutes later. Why am I saying that? Much later. Next the penalty. It's Tangalini. And the Blues can't score. Brett Hall tried to do it to us again, but Brasso says no. 1 minute later, we score! Blake Erie, his third from Stevenson Coffee, makes it 3-1. 3 minutes later. No chance? Mullen? No. Trying to score on his former team. But he did so. His second from Yager and Coffee, 4-1. Mando is fucking angry, and Jablonski is coming in. Jablonski. 3 minutes into the game. Go Perry. St. Louis takes the penalty. It's Oates. Really, Tim? A chance? Oh, we tried to score. No chance scores. Pop-up power play goal. Hot to trot from Lemieux, 5-1. So Brian Trottier, welcome back to the end show. 1 minute later. That's all boom. 5-2. Watch out. In the simulation, 3 games. Does it again. He puts the hat trick on. The 6 goals, 3 games. So he's averaging 2 goals a game. So that's 160 goals. But we score Phil DeFrill from Tagliani and Recchi makes it 6-3. So we ruined their momentum. And we win 6-3. Beautiful. Brett Hall scores a hat trick, but we win the game 6-3. That's gonna be rare. A guy scores a hat trick against us, and they still lose by 3 freaking goals. But that's us. We're 3-0. And we are somewhere. Calgary beats Detroit, so now they're 4-0. Quebec is 3-0-1 somehow. Oh man, we got to play Chicago. Well, early returns after 3 games, we have 6 points. The Rangers have 6 points, but they're 3-1. We're 3-0. Philly, New Jersey doing well. Washington, the Islanders are faltering. Quebec with 7 points. Quebec, Frake, 3-0-1. How are they doing this? Boston's got 5 points. Everyone else has 3. The Smite Division, Calgary, LA, and Edmonton. Well, Calgary's 4-0. LA and Edmonton have won a game. Vancouver and Winnipeg have yet to win. Detroit have yet to win either. St. Louis with only 1 point in 3 games. Chicago, Minnesota, and Toronto up there. Brett Hall has 6 goals, but so does Joe Newendike, but he's done it 6 goals and 4. Pittsburgh, well, our guys, Bobby has the most with 3. Goaltending, Barasso's got 2 goals against. Ron Hextall's the only one behind him, ahead of him. Points-wise, well, Ron Francis has 7, but it's Hartford to Pittsburgh. Recky's got 5. Neely, McInnes, and Gretzky all have 10 points. All very good players. Craig Jennings, I don't think is. But that's just me. Brett Hall doesn't have an assist. Typical. So anyway, that's the start of the 1991 season. Fun to come soon later. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.